Welcome, Rob. In the Two Token studio here. My name is Alex Bausch. I'm the chairman and the founder of the Two Tokens project, and I'm really honored to have you here as founder and one of the initiative takers of the IWA. And the research team here just interviewed with Marley Gray, talked about all the technicalities of token taxonomy, how tokens are used, and how we apply them at use cases. But I think it would be good if you could explain, the motivation of IWA and how you started it and where you come from. I can tell you that we at Two Tokens, we're very passionate about the cause. We have 3 different silos of people that we want to include in the movement, being legal regulatory people, finance people, banks, supply chain finance people, and the third, not to forget, the technology people. But I would like to hear from you and our viewers, the origins of the IWA and what you stand for, and how Two Tokens and IWA are going to, cooperate.
Great. Well, thanks. Pleasure to be here. I might just give a little history of my background because that has what I've learned over the years is influencing our approach to what we're looking to do in a far more complicated, I'd say, ecosystem because it's not tied to any one vertical market segment. So my past life, I was involved at Intel and telecommunications and 4G. And one of the biggest problems we had there was, let alone streaming video, which is what 4G did, but even more importantly is interoperability. And you all remember in the olden days, the high cost of roaming, you couldn't get your phone to work on another network. It was a nightmare, and it's been solved. Well, the reason why it was solved, and that's where I've spent 12 years being involved in it, it's been solved because everyone, the staunchest competitors in tens of billions of dollars worth of potential business had to all collaborate and cooperate globally to come up with a common framework and how you define the interworking of the communications amongst disparate telecom infrastructure, the network management, how your phone's used, all kinds of aspects. But that happened, and we see the result, and actually it's great. Your SIM card, you can take one SIM card, plug it in pretty much anywhere, and your phone works. So I learned I'd say the best practices of how that can be accomplished, and so fast forward now into the world of DLT, DLT technology. I'd say blockchain as one implementation of it, and just the whole notion of how we can use digitization to improve business. We've experienced over the last few years, as you mentioned, just a mega fragmentation of approaches for folks trying to accomplish those objectives to build out solutions in the world of digitized implementations of technology, such as blockchain, and we're seeing this in many areas. And the end result is there's no interoperability, and the bottom line is there's a mega, I'd say, motivation to that folks recognize to improve find a better solution to improve interoperability amongst these disparate business infrastructure, where everyone's trying to speed up transactions, improving efficiency of conducting business, let alone this is all about protecting the transaction data, let alone decentralization to reduce large-scale hacking of accounts, and also building trust with the regulatory environment and companies who know nothing about what the new world of what tokens are going to bring to them. And another one is just the reduced auditing costs, because we have basically DLT technology, so you have a decentralized ledger to help facilitate and improve, lower the costs for auditing. And so the challenge is, as the world is, I'd say not the whole world, but the folks who are better understanding what tokens can bring to the world, it's there's this recognition that we need to digitize these real world assets vis-a-vis through tokens. And I would say 98%, 99.8% of the world has no clue what this means, and let alone the businesses that the folks who really do know. Those businesses who, of the folks who know, are going to reach out to these businesses who don't know, who are their customers, and try to convince them to do some things that are can be scary to them and imply risk. So therefore, what our organization does, and it's what you guys are doing, we need a better approach that that tells a story that because it focuses on the business needs and not on the technology platform that each individual company who understands the market and they understand the business, but they're really trying to have the whole world focus on their technology platform. And that's just not, I highly doubt that that's going to happen, because in the world of telecom, which is super complicated, that's just one market segment. Now, what we're building is something that could reach any market segment in the world. I don't see how it's doable. So the fact is, if we can have a common language, a common approach on how we define these digitized representation of value, which we call tokens, and how those tokens can be used and tied to smart contracts and all the modules that you can, or I'd say capabilities and behaviors that you can connect to a token that solves these issues that I spoke about previously. The approach that we're taking in the IWA is that we need to have a common framework of how you define these purposes of and definitions to such that everybody in the world is speaking the same language.
Right. And that's exactly what we are trying. That's our mission. And by the way, 2 tokens means towards token finance, towards tokenization. And we are trying to reach the normal, regular business people who are non-technical savvy. And how do you reach them? By showing use cases that they can recognize their own use case in. And how is IWA going to be doing this? Because as you know, we're currently undergoing 3 use cases, in supply chain finance, alternative funding, and how is IWA going to work with that?
Okay, so the way we're going to do it, we structured our organization to be business focused.
Yeah.
And we intentionally have structured the organization at the lowest level, where companies are going to decide what technology implementation they'll use. We don't get into that area. In fact, that's not anything that we're focusing on. But if you move higher up, let's say the stack, where you're looking at a token, and higher up how business contracts can be defined, and then one level up, well, how do you report out the analytics so that the business people can figure out basically the results of all this activity? That doesn't exist yet in a simple, understandable way. And then there's one more level to this that we're doing in the IWA. How do you build trust? How can we convince regulatory bodies, and then the monstrous portion of companies in the world, which is about all of them, who don't understand even what a token is? How do we get them to buy into this equation and not use language that they're going to be skeptical of because they just don't understand it, or they'll need a simpler way to have them understand it? That's our purpose.
Yeah, so and how do you get them to adopt it, right? And I'm sure that not every industry is ready for adoption of tokenization. So, so I'm sure that you have a couple of industries in mind that you want to start with, but how do you get them to use it?
Really great question. I don't think all the... one of the things that we're doing in our org is you have to spur curiosity by these companies, which are the majority of them, to go, there's something out there I might want to check on. And typically it's not top down in this case. It's going to be from maybe their IT department, the business department, somebody who connects with some of our members like Accenture, or just to see that, let's say, DTCC and NASDAQ and ING Bank and UBS, all these companies, these companies are looking at it. And the bottom line is that's sort of how I think it's going to occur. It's going to be we found the fellow travelers in our launch. We had like 37 companies and associations that they've already been looking at it, and they have work being done in it. And in the bigger scheme of things, that's not a lot. But on the other hand, they're very well recognized companies. So how do we create that into the buzz and use a viral approach so it sort of works its way through until there's more and more interest, and it just grows and grows and grows. And then there'll be more and more articles, which now we're getting because of what we did and working with you guys and bringing associations in. And I can tell you, since our announcement, my LinkedIn and my messages, I can't even begin to track, asking me, I heard about this. What do I need to do to be a member? How do I learn more? I had one person send me a note, what's the difference between DIF and tokens? And so it's already proven that it works. So what we're doing together, collaborating on this, is exactly what needs to be done to build out a global ecosystem that leverages the benefit of the digitization of real-world assets and a way, and that's what we're doing, in a way that makes it palatable for big companies to make a commitment. And one of the things that we're doing, which is really interesting, when we're defining a token, it's not about necessarily blockchain at all. In fact, that's not part of the name of our entity because it isn't. A token can be defined using legacy infrastructure, and the whole notion of building out, I'd say, large-scale business processes and having them rip out their old stuff isn't going to happen. So our model is very, very different. We're not like this innovative entity where some of the companies who are members would love to see it, but we're recognizing and they're recognizing that this approach needs to be understandable, be able to do it in building blocks, walk before you run, look at the current infrastructure of how companies are doing business, and that's what we're doing in our org. We're defining and that's why we're called the InterWork Alliance. We're defining interworking communication protocols, or a way you can connect from one building block or one module to another, whether it's how you build consensus, how you validate that a build late, something that's been signed. Everyone may have a different technology or platform to do it, but the market requirements and the performance metrics, how many you need to transact per second, how fast does that have to happen per second, how do you use the cryptographic security measures, how are you going to validate and build the trust that it can't be duplicated? All these things that Marley talked about in far more in depth. What we're doing is just making it simpler for business to understand those processes, and we're building these hooks through the communication protocol that if any company wishes to participate with what we're doing and you're doing, join, they can help define this framework, and these frameworks are modular open source. They join because we have to protect the intellectual property.
And that's exactly what, because we need to first build ecosystems of companies working together, you need to be inclusive. And we need to invite those people in to help with experiments, to help with the proof of concepts, like the electronic bill of lading project that we're doing between the Port of Rotterdam, the Port of Singapore. It's not just one company, right? It's a bunch of companies, bunch of people working together. So in order for those companies and for those industries to work together, you need to inform them and inspire them of how things can work, how they can have a lower cost of ownership and be more effective. So inform, inspire, innovate, impact. Those are the 4 I's. And I think for both our orgs, that's what matters.
Yeah, and so what we're doing, and this is part of our plan, this token framework. It'll take a little bit. It's like my analogy is the language of music. I'm a musician, so there's 12 notes in a musical scale. The whole world knows that, right? And there's rules and meaning a framework of how you construct chords and music. What We don't have anything to do with what musical instrument is being built, how it's being built, what it does. We also don't have a way to through the scales and the rules, how many styles of music exist in the world. But what's really amazing, if somebody is handed a chart, they can, and it could be jazz, any style of music, and they can go anywhere in the world, and musicians who've never met, they can sit down in an instant and all play together and communicate. That's our model. We need to. What
That's a
we're
great
trying to.
analogy. And what instrument do you play?
I play keyboards. I play
Oh,
in a band. I'm a jazz rock pop keyboardist,
oh,
and
wow.
so
We should bring
yeah.
that in our next recording.
Well, when we all get together, we're going to form a band. It's really interesting. Tim Grant from SDX, he plays. He's amazing, a guitar player, and then there's some other musicians. We're going to have a token band. We already do. We could all play. We're going to be working on some stuff.
Do a home
But so back
isolation
to
recording. Yeah, why not? And
we
maybe
can do
next
it.
time, we meet, with COVID-19 and everything, you'll be able to visit us again. We're planning a
Yeah,
summit, a
and
tokenization summit, Q4. But yeah, for sure, bring your instruments.
yeah. And so here's the other point tied to what you were just bringing up. We need to educate and inform, which you already brought up. So one of the missions we have in the IWA, we have a public version of the framework for free for anybody to download. We will have a public version of the GitHub, so where they can even download the tooling, which I think you heard in the other session. We have tooling that allows you to drag and drop and move things around, so you don't have to be a hardcore programmer in any language. You still will have to learn it a bit, and then you could actually build your formulas for the inner working of how everybody can speak the same language. That's going to be available for school for anyone, and we're going to work with and we talked about it. We would like to work with schools and academic institutions so they can start teaching how about tokens, because that's not what we're about. Is just a way you can define them that is globally simple and to be used. But the business model, the use cases, all it's infinite. So that's our plan. We're all about globalization and having this for free. If a company, once they recognize, oh, we want to use it, we have to protect, that asset. So then they join, and then they can actually modify it, but it's not expensive to join. All it does is help build trust, because we'll audit it through certification through an independent lab, put our seal on it that says you can trust that we validated these performance metrics and market requirements were met using the framework. So if you want to use somebody else's solution, you don't have to think, oh, I have to rip all my infrastructure out. There's a higher level of trust that we're not going to king make any one company.
Yeah, and that's right. Because we plan several master classes, deep dives, and token taxonomy framework is one of those. We're planning that later this year, and we will be working together on that note because we think that the TTF, the framework as an educational tool, is paramount in what we're trying to do. And so be sure to come back and register for that masterclass. And whether we do it online or in class, in a classroom setting, we're doing it together with several universities and here, Erasmus University in Europe, and you're doing it in your end, in your neck of the woods. But it'll be good to share the notes on that.
So we'll do it globally, but so recognize there are three frameworks.
Yep.
There's the token framework, and then you have the InterWork framework, which is one above it, where that's how you connect contracts. And so that's how the contracts are going to communicate. That's a whole other aspect of it. And then there's an analytics framework. Each one of those are like the building blocks to have a complete solution that companies can use. And so there'll be three levels of learning to actually build out a good infrastructure for interoperability.
Yep. Well, on that note, thank you so much for this quick interview, and congratulations on the launch last week. We at Two Tokens are proud to be part of it, and we hope to see you soon again, either in live person or in this studio.
Great, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. We'll see you.